Welcome to another episode of the Keezy Ellie Show, and I'm here with one of my favorite human beings, Miss Rach Bird, or Mrs. Rach Bird, as I should say. And I'm absolutely delighted for this conversation. And as most of you know, I always just talk about the things that I'm interested in, that are lighting me up, that are lighting my clients up. And most of my clients are women, and most of them are in the ranges of between 30 and 50-ish. That's like the main age group. So we're kind of hitting in the age of perimenopause. We're hitting in the age of like actually having to focus on our health. And Miss Rach Bird is an incredible naturopath amongst many, many, many titles of healthcare, women's wellness, as well. So I wanted to get her on here and ask all the fucking juicy questions so we can maximize our health alongside having our babies and having our businesses. So welcome, Miss Rach.
Thank you very much. Absolutely an honour to be here. Also one of my favourite humans. Miss Keezy Lee. Yeah, very happy to be here. Love talking about this, and yeah, it all needs to be talked about more.
Cool. So first question.
Go.
I guess obviously this is alive for me as well. And I've just had two young children, and, I have a lot on my slate, and I've just recently had my bloods done with Rach, and Rach also does human design as well. And I guess the first question I wanted to ask, what's the go-to first step for maybe a woman in that age gap who really wants to maximize her health, has a lot of stress on her plate, and is doing a lot, what would be the first steps that they really need to look at, to be as healthy as we can? And maybe things aren't working for them like they used to be.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a big thing in my circles and my community that I'm hearing is like, okay, well, I don't lose weight like I used to. And there's just so much fucking information. So yeah, let's debunk that.
There's a catch up, we spend a lot of time as younger women for various reasons, taking energy from the future almost, the coffee, the doing all the things, and then at some point our bodies go, whoa, it just can't keep going. Our adrenal glands, which is the glands that make cortisol, our major stress hormone, they can't just keep going. They're not designed for that. So I think, the work that you do and the work that I do, what women need to understand that we're not designed to do all the fucking things. Like, that's not how we are designed. And, I've had this conversation before, and I know you've heard it before, but, we spent so many years trying to get into this fucking man's club, this, spending all of our energy and time building a bridge to cross the moat. And we should have been building another castle over there that was actually for our needs. It's the same thing. And I'm not bagging men. However, we have to understand that this model that we live in does not serve us. So we have to do things differently if we want to be well into our, whatever. For our kids, for our grandkids, for our jobs, for whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, and I was thinking about this morning in the shower, and when I first went to uni in my first life, I did a psych degree. So this is in the 90s, right? I was in my 20s, and I remember it distinctly, the study that was done of women and their happiness. And they were split into three groups: women who chose to stay at home and be mums, women who, whether they had kids or not, who chose to work, and women who were trying to do both, doing the juggle. The women that were happy, the two that either that stayed at home to do the mum thing, or that chose to work and kind of pass some of that other responsibility on. And the women that were unhappiest were the women trying to do it all, because that's not we're designed for. Now, that is not to say that we can't have fulfilling jobs and all of the other things and be mums. It's to say that we have to do it fucking differently, because this trying to do both in this model does not work. And, you know, as I said, that was the 90s. It was before Google and social media and all the things. So, you know, the only way for women to work then was to go to work in the man's world, you know, so it's different. Things have changed, and thank God. But the basis still applies. You know, we cannot, our bodies are not designed to do everything. They're not. It's like if you compare our body, a woman's body, to a man's body. So I don't know where your main listeners are, but here, you know, we have the Toyota Hilux Ute, you know, the bog standard trusty vehicle. That's what a man's body's like. It goes and it goes and it goes and it starts and it goes there. One day it blows up. Our bodies are like a sports car, a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. You know, there's a lot of fine tuning, there's a lot of pit stops required, there's a lot of making sure all the things are working. But the model that we live in, we're trying to drive like the Hilux. It doesn't work.
I love that. Yeah, we need a lot of fine tuning.
We need a lot of fine tuning, and it's been made to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
And heaven forbid that we know how to fine tune our own bodies. Like, don't get me started on that whole thing. Like, being the CEO of our bodies, that is my goal for all women on the planet, to know what their bodies are doing, what serves them, what doesn't serve them. Because, you know, when we spoke this morning on what we're going to talk about, you mentioned food. Well, you know, there's such a minefield out there in the world. There is no good or bad food. It's just information for your body. And everybody's body is different. And if you put in a very basic way, an organic carrot is clearly going to be different information than a cream bun. Neither of them are good or bad. They're just different information. And I think as women, we don't understand enough about what the good information is, you know, and that's, you know.
So I'm a woman. I mean, we'll just use me as an example, you know, and because there's a lot of talk right now about cortisol. Let's dive in there first.
Yep, cortisol.
What is cortisol? How do we fix it? How do we know if we've got it? Like, what do we need to do?
Cortisol, everybody has cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone. It's our major stress hormone. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk on and off over many years about adrenal fatigue, and whether that's a thing. And I mean, basically what happens is there is a thing called the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands, right? There are other axes in the body, but those three things. Now, that particular system of those three things is, if you are producing too much cortisol for too long, that system will be put under pressure, and it's, you know, like, so it becomes not functioning very well. And that's what we know as adrenal fatigue. It's not right. And one of the things, as you know, that I do is I look at people's blood tests from a functional point of view, as many people do in the functional medicine space, because it's not about the presence or absence of disease. So if we're looking at cortisol, the way we measure it in New Zealand and in Australia, the range is like, I don't know, as long as it's over 150 and under 500, it's normal, right? Well, let me tell you, normal is not fucking optimal. And if your cortisol is, I like it to be between 300 and 350. If it's higher than that, if it's, you know, up to 400 and plus, it just means your adrenals are just on all the time. Because that cortisol measure is measured in the morning. It's measured in the morning between like 8 and 9, around there, because as our melatonin, you know, the sleepy time hormone drops as we are waking up for the day, because it's getting lighter, and that's what our body responds to. Our cortisol is supposed to come up at a level as you would wake up.
Yeah.
Nobody wakes up and is, that's not the ideal. So if your cortisol's pumping really hard and fast early, it just shows us that you've been on that treadmill for too long. And then the next phase is that it's low, it's under 300. And I like to describe it like, you know, your adrenals are just going, because they're spent. They're still producing cortisol, but not to the level that they need to, so that you go, and that's that really, you know, when people are at that, you know, they wake up and they're like, you know, and it's so hard to get up because it takes their body a long time to get that hormone level up. And you know, our body, even though yes, it is complicated and it's a finely tuned machine and all of the things, it's kind of simple on the other hand. It's only interested in two things: surviving a famine and running from a lion. Now, as women, we have told our bodies there's a famine coming many times because we don't eat that and we eat that and we're too fat and this and that. And so, you know, our body already knows that there's a famine coming. So then we wonder as we get older why, you know, it's harder to release some weight, because we've told your body will hold on to stuff because it's like, I know we're going to be having a famine soon and my job is I can keep us surviving, so I'm going to store that. Right, so that's one of the pictures. And the other thing, the running from the lion, you know, if we go back hundreds of years, there was only one big stress a day, and it might have been running from a lion, or it might have been chasing down your own food or whatever. That's my dogs fighting now. I'm sorry about that noise.
Can't hear them.
Good. And yeah, so, but in the modern world, we're running from a lion all the time.
Yeah.
The driving in the car, someone toots at us, you know, getting an email from someone, having a fight with your partner, your teenagers, your workmates, whatever. And then hang on, I'm just going to shut the door because I can hear it. Apologies. So,
okay.
and then, and it's, you know, and then it's not that running is bad or pumping weights or going to CrossFit, but if your body's already pumping cortisol and then that's what you choose to do for exercise, all your body hears is there's another lion.
Yeah.
And you wonder why you can't release weight, because if your body's under that kind of pressure, it won't.
Yeah.
So
say if you were like, okay, I'm feeling blah still, you know, getting your bloods done and looking like things like, obviously they can come to you, but you know, getting their adrenals looked at, and I guess
nothing exists on its own. So the first hormone, because there are many hormones, you know, there's your adrenals, there's our sex hormones, your progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, your thyroid hormones, you know, there's a whole lot of different hormones in the body, and everything touches everything.
Yeah.
So one of the first hormones to regulate is your blood sugar, your insulin.
Is that glucose, what they talk about?
Yeah, well, they measure blood glucose, but yeah, the hormone is the insulin. So when you eat carbohydrate, sugar, whatever, simple sugar or whatever you want, your body produces insulin, and the insulin takes the sugar into the cell, so it can be used as energy. So what happens when our blood sugar is really unstable and we're going up and down, and then you know, there's lots of things that make that happen. Sugar, like the white death sugar that we want to call it, the really simple carbs, because those things aren't food. Like they're not like a complex nutrient dense thing that you eat. I mean, like I eat chocolate too, but I'm just saying, let's be honest, they just shoot your blood sugar up, and then what happens is it crashes. The other thing that does that is coffee. Okay, you might say, well, that's very boring and tough shit. I don't care. Well, what happens is every time that happens and it crashes, your body produces cortisol and adrenaline because it doesn't like it. It's a stress for your body. So the first thing to do is because that's something you can do. You can change the way you eat or what you eat and stuff. So that's the first thing. The next thing to do is think about what kind of exercise you're doing and do something. And it's not about forever, but you might want to do some parasympathetic exercise or movement for a while till you get your adrenal glands in check or supported. Yeah. Because if you're doing exercise that is running from a lion, it's kind of counterproductive, right?
Just creating more stress.
Walking is one of the best forms of movement because if you imagine, so your adrenal glands are just above your kidneys, which sit just at the back, if you can feel your hip bones a little bit higher than that. Now, if you imagine, if you're walking, this is what your hip bones are doing, right? It's a nice massage. It's not quite the same as if you're running and, like it's not quite as gentle, is it? Just from a physical point of view on those adrenal glands. But then there's also the whole, hormone picture. Yoga, Pilates, I don't know, any of the above, swimming. Yeah, not forever, not about good or bad, just different. Because cortisol, the thing, it's never a simple answer, is it? So
of course,
at the top of that hormone cascade or production, so not all of the hormones, but all of our sex hormones and cortisol, and we actually produce cortisone, which is the anti-inflammatory. If you've heard of hydrocortisone, which is manufactured, but our body produces cortisone as well, which is supposed to be anti-inflammatory for us. So all of those hormones, they're called our steroid hormones, the very beginning of making those is cholesterol. Now, cholesterol has been given a really bad rap. And yeah, if it's really fucking high, it's not ideal, but we actually need fat because we cannot make hormones without fat, right? So that's the myth number one. Eat good fat. It keeps us full, it makes our hormones, it does, lots of other stuff. So cholesterol is the first thing. It needs cholesterol. Then that becomes pregnenolone, which is, it's called the grandmother hormone. It's like the hormone that all the other things get made from. Now, what happens with that, if it's too busy making cortisol because your body's under stress, it doesn't make the other stuff. Right. It's called it's the pregnenolone steal. It steals all of the stuff it needs to make the other hormones because it has to make cortisol. Because your body doesn't give a shit whether you have a hard time getting pregnant or a hot flush or a dry vagina or your periods are long and painful. It cares that you can run from a lion. Yeah. So that's what it will do preferentially. It will make cortisol, which is why the stress thing is so incredibly important, and we aren't told about that, because that, if your body is so focused on making cortisol, then it won't make cortisone, the anti-inflammatory. You'll have more aches and pains, and it won't make progesterone, which will mean that your estrogen and progesterone balance is off, and you'll be more likely to have painful periods and endometriosis and yada, 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 and polycystic ovarian syndrome and all of the other things. Yeah. Because it's a fact. That's what your body will make instead. So that's why the cortisol picture becomes so incredibly important. Yeah.
So that's almost like one of the first things that you're probably looking at.
Well, I look at that, and I look at blood glucose, and I look at their HbA1c, which is, another measure of how they're managing blood sugar, and I look at their thyroid, because nothing exists in a vacuum. Yeah. It'll and then there's you know, the basics. The very first things I look at is zinc and vitamin D, because they're unbelievably important for so many reactions in the body.
Wow.
That, and people say, you know, I live in New Zealand and I have clients in Australia and New Zealand. Oh no, I get in the sun all the time, and the vitamin D will be really low.
Oh, why?
Because it's not about how much sun you're getting. It's
Right.
about how your gut can make that into vitamin D in your bloodstream.
Oh,
And so if you've got bacteria and you've got a whole lot of gut symptoms, and you know, then your vitamin D is going to be off.
yeah.
It's, you know, and the other thing I get people to talk about a lot is their pooping, because it's the basics, you know, the gut is our second brain.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's called. There are more bacteria in the gut than we have cells in the body, and we have like 50 trillion cells in the body. That's how many bacteria are there. They're making 80% of our serotonin. It's another hormone. That's a happy hormone. You know, like they're doing so many things, and we don't really look after them very well.
Yeah.
So, but again, there's no good or bad food. But if there's food that you're eating that's, you know, you're getting bloated or constipated or diarrhea or whatever, then it's not serving you. Like, it's just
Yeah.
not. And you know, when I work with clients or women, it's just choice.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be, because if you make it deprivation, or I'm not allowed, or that's bad, it always ends in a binge, because you don't have the power. That you're giving the power to the food or the alcohol or the whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when you choose, well, you know what, I'm choosing to serve my body differently, then it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The shame spiral doesn't help anything, does it?
No. Oh.
So, like, if we talk about preventative care, you know, and I've been hearing, you know, I asked you about it, about perimenopause, and, you know, like, how do we support
Well,
ourselves? I don't know what that means even. I'm just like, I'm just, you know, hearing the fads, and I guess because I'm coming into that, you know, I'm 36, and there's just talk of it.
The biggest thing that you can do to prepare your body for menopause is to control your fucking stress. Because your adrenal glands, their job is, one of their jobs as you age, your ovaries stop producing estrogen. So estrogen decline that's what menopause is. And I don't like to use the word symptoms, because it's not a fucking disease. It's a life stage that is very, very normal, right? However, these things that we call symptoms, hot flushes and brain fog and mood swings and low mood and dry vagina and weight gain, and you know, it's a fun deal. They're all from the decreasing levels of estrogen, right?
Okay.
So estrogen is one of our two primary hormones as a woman. Now, our adrenal glands, one of their jobs, as the ovaries decline that production, our adrenal glands are supposed to take up that slack. Now, it's not the same level, and it's not actually the same type of estrogen. It's different, but that's their job, to take up the slack. Now, if your body thinks you are running from a lion, it's not going to have anything left to produce estrogen from those adrenal glands.
Wow. So it's like, the more stressed you are, the worse, I won't say symptoms, the worse what's happening is going to.
But it's not just about how stressed you are now. It's the lead up, right?
Yeah.
Your adrenal glands are, their job is to do that over time. But it's not like, oh, now I'm 50, I'm just going to be not stressed. If you've had a history of massive stress, you're already loaded.
Right.
because they just can't do everything.
Yeah. So like the best thing is, I mean, stress.
I mean,
Like,
it sounds like a really simple thing, but this is where, the work that you do. And if you're a woman and you're trying to juggle, because here's the thing, it's like we as women, it's like we're juggling plates, spinning plates. If you imagine we've got, there's a job, there's on a plate on a big stick, and there's all the kids, and there's the fucking birthday party, and then I go support my husband, and I'm a taxi driver, and all of the, I'm everything. And what you end up with is a big load of broken crockery at the bottom. We can't keep spinning plates and expect that it will end badly somewhere along the line. And one of the things that will definitely end in is a shitty menopause.
yeah. So we can prevent having those
Well, you can,
challenging times. Like, you do have to have do you have to have a really bad menopause experience, or like
you don't have to have a menopause, because also there are, people go, oh, well, I don't want to, so my as you know, I'm not a purist. My personal philosophy is that medication is, it helps people, and sometimes it's really necessary, and as a society we rely on it way too much, like it's my journey to parenthood involved some IVF treatments, where they shut down your own production. They basically put you in a menopause state. And I remember I was actually studying to be a naturopath at the time that I was doing my first IVF, and I was like, fuck this. If this is what menopause is like, I'm taking the drugs. I remember saying that, So, and now, that you can, get bioidentical progesterone, and you can have an estrogen patch, and it can change people's lives while they get some of the other stuff in order, right? It's not about that being the enemy.
totally.
Because that then again, we have no control, and we have no power over our own bodies. And if you happen to have a life with whatever, maybe it's that you have kids with extra needs, maybe it's you are a single parent, maybe you're it could be anything that you have not been able to actually keep on top of your adrenals. You get to get some fucking relief in menopause. It's not like, oh, well, that's bad and you have to have the terrible things happening. Like there's a whole lot of herbs that help, and there's a whole lot of ways to do lots of stuff that will help in menopause. Eating, we don't need enough protein, and it's another whole topic. But there are lots and lots and lots of ways to help. It's not like, oh my God, I've been stressed in my 30s and 40s, I'm going to have a shitty time. It's not that simple. And it's also not that complicated, like we do too many things.
Yeah.
We carry a lot as women, and as particularly as mums. So and the other thing, and I've spoken to you about this before, food, the things that we put in our mouth, it's incredibly important. And the things that we put in our mouth are actually secondary foods. There's a whole lot of primary foods that we seem to have lost touch with as women, that if they're not met, it doesn't matter what you put in your mouth, you're still going to not be that well. Like, moving your body every day in a way that serves you, having some creativity in your life, having a spiritual model of some sort. I don't care what it is, but it's actually important for us as humans, because we used to live, as you know, in a village, and we have lost that, and that whole connection, loving relationships. It doesn't have to be with a partner, but there has to be relationships in your life that give you love, or it's actually a primary food. Learning, which is why, the work that you do, having women in these masterminds, I was one of them. It's life-changing, because we don't have it anymore, so, joy, pleasure, oh my God, heaven forbid we're allowed to talk about that as women. You know, these are primary foods that we just kind of, people think, oh, well, as long as they eat right, and well, it's you know, there's all the other things too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That
such a good
really,
point. I forgot about that. And it's, you know, as I work with a lot of people, and it's like, it doesn't actually, yeah, that the eating right and the exercise, of course, it's important. But, you know, if you don't have loving connections and you don't see people, you know, like sometimes the damaging part of the online world is that people then don't leave the house
yeah.
and are not having actual relationships. You know, you probably
Yeah,
see that with,
and you know, I mean, my business is online too, and it's important, and it's but we have to remember, you know, I was talking to a friend just this morning about, you know, fucking comparison is the thief of joy.
yeah,
We all fall into it, and the online space is the worst, because I can guarantee you the people online, their lives are not like that, including
yeah,
the people in my industry that are, you know, it's not, it's just, you know, so,
yeah.
and then there's the comparison, because if you see all this stuff, oh, so and so, and then, you know, then there's the, oh God, you know, speaking of primary foods, if it becomes a chore, oh my God, I've got to do my ice bath, and I've got to meditate, and I've got to do my morning, oh my God, I've got to do this, and I've got to have some pleasure, and I've got to do this. Then it's just a ticking off stuff, and your adrenals are fucked.
Totally.
So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's, you know, balance is a word that is way overused, but it really is about balance. Yeah.
I like harmony, you know, because it's
Harmony,
about
yes.
finding that
That harmony is the word. I was trying to think of it like menopause brain. I just couldn't, had to go back to balance.
you know, finding that flow, because there's
Yeah,
no like, you know, the scales are always tipping and seasons and
yeah.
all of it.
And you know, I can't remember what the word is, but the circadian rhythm, you know, it's real, but that's not our rhythm. A woman's rhythm is not a 24-hour rhythm. It's a
Ah,
28-day rhythm. You know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
our rhythm is different. There's a word for it. Instead of circadian, there's a, I don't know, let's make something up. But it, you know, our rhythm is different. But the world that we live in is a 24-hour rhythm world,
yeah,
7 day a week.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's, and you know, that wasn't even talked about when, you know, the people that are now in their 50s, when we were 30, nobody was saying, oh yeah, you know, we need to embrace the flow of our menstrual cycle. I mean, I was at naturopathy college, and that wasn't even, you know,
really.
yeah.
Wow. But it's just, I mean, it's such a, I mean, in regards to a woman's health, her cycle is like
Ah,
such a key
imperative,
indicator.
totally. And
Yeah,
it's again, all of the everything touches everything, and you know, cortisol, and then food, what we are eating, and it is really important. Like, we have moved from this, you know, like nutrient dense world of eating whole foods. You know, basically, I say to people, if your grandmother or great grandmother doesn't recognize that as food, don't eat it.
yeah, yeah,
Except maybe tofu, you know, because they wouldn't recognize that, but you know, that's okay. But you know what I mean? Like, don't, all that stuff, it's not food.
yeah,
It's yeah. And you have to live, you know, it's just, yeah.
yeah,
Which is why I think, you know, um, women need other women to walk with during these, you know, journeys of their health and their businesses and their, because it's a, yeah, we're actually not solitary beasts, women. We're not. Like, you know, if we talk about hunter gathering,
yeah,
you know, we were the gatherers, which you did in community. The hunting was a way more solo expedition. And I'm not saying that women can't be hunters and yada yada. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that we are designed for community and connection
yeah,
more so than men.
yeah. And I think it's actually the baseline for happiness, you know. I mean, Rach and I always talk about this, the whole tribe piece, and especially because she was with me through so much of my, you know, when I had very young children and the struggle that I was facing then, you know, and it is such a, you know, I've still got a drive, desire to a new recreation of what community looks like. But, you know, we've even got a demi peer that lives in our house, you know, like, and even just having her here when I'm with the kids is nice. Like I don't like being on my own with the kids all day and having no other connection but them. You know, I've got to get out of the house. It's not natural.
It's not natural. And, you know, I remember when Facebook started. And I remember saying to Mr. Bird, oh, this is like what's taken over from chatting to our neighbour across the fence when we're hanging the washing. You know, except it didn't take over from that, you know, like it's not the same connection, but you know, there was, and I'm not saying that being a 1950s housewife is the ideal, trust me, that is not what I'm saying. However, we need to take the bits that we're working in.
Yeah, it's not about going backwards.
In the modern world to have that community, because it's
because have you heard of the like trad wife trend? Have you seen that?
What now?
the trad wife trend.
Oh, the trad wife, yeah. I mean, you know, it's interesting. And you know, I have shared with you that there have been some things in my world lately that have, you know, kind of shaken the boat. And I have actually realized that it's okay that I get taken care of.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I was, you know, at high school in the 80s where it was like, girls can do anything, you cannot be relying on anyone, and, you know, wear the shoulder pads and try to look like a masculine figure, and, you know, and it's actually okay. Like, be looked after.
In fact, it's more than okay, and it's actually deeply necessary. And I think, you know, I'm just launched my Mamas Make Movements program, and I was even talking about single women, you know, and I'm like, I even know single mothers that are being deeply supported. It can't just be about that, and we have to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's not up for negotiation, and I think, you know, whatever, you know, we're not going backwards, we're not going forwards, but whatever these conversations spark is a desire to create a new way. You know, like I'm always like, oh, we are creating it. Even if I think about my life now, I'm like, oh, it's not exactly the community that I would love, but I'm getting closer. You know, I'm you know, letting my walls down and opening my heart to receive support, and, you know, and still, you know, peace is my inner goal. It's my ultimate inner goal, because from that place, like you talked about the stress, then everything can flourish.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, like doing this work is, I value my sleep now. I know that, like, you know, like I've got to be bloody so strict with my sleep, and wishing when you haven't had sleep for a couple of years, you know. And it's a big one.
You know, I mean, sleep is a massive part of it's like one of the absolute fundamentals of wellness is our sleep.
Yeah.
You know, getting enough of it and at the right time. And all of those things around sleep hygiene, and they can make a massive difference to your cortisol levels.
Yeah, I bet. What does sleep hygiene mean to you?
It means that you can go to sleep easily and stay asleep and wake up refreshed. If that's happening, then your sleep's probably doing pretty good. And if it's not, then the hygiene things are like, you know, your room needs to be dark. You're not designed to be sleeping in the light. It should be dark and cool. You know, like, I mean, obviously if you live in a hot place, but you know what I mean? Like, people heat their bedrooms, and turning off the light, like the light thing, like, kids just roll their eyes. But you know, it's not just about looking at the phone. It's that if you get an email or you see something that then your cortisol is like,
stress.
and you can't, that's not a place where your body can then rest. So and there's the whole light thing, because as the evening approaches, we produce melatonin, right? And that's our sleepy time hormone. And that goes up, cortisol comes down, we are supposed to go.
Yeah.
Right? If you're looking at a light all the time, or like the TV, or till 11, and then you go to bed and you wonder why you can't go to sleep. Well, it's not rocket science, is it? Because you've been telling your body that there's still light outside, and our body is still a primitive thing. It responds to whatever it's got. If you've got light, it's daytime.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then there's if you lie on your back with your legs up the wall like that, so your head's here and then your legs, and if obviously if you've got tight hamstrings, you might be on a bit of a lean, but
I was going to say, what do you do if you've got mine are a bit like, bent?
it's just kind of, or you can have your legs bent on the back of a chair or whatever, but when you're in that position, your hypothalamus, which knows where you are posturally all the time, will go, you can't run from a lion in that position, and it will send a message to your adrenal glands to stop producing cortisol.
Yeah.
So your body will actually go into parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest.
Mm.
And then you will be able to achieve a deeper sleep because your body is already in it.
Yeah.
15 minutes before you go to bed, breathe into your belly. Don't look at your phone.
Yeah. Phone out of the room. That's my biggest thing. I'm like, put my phone away.
Yeah. Just put it in a different room. And I know that it's hard but it's like sleep's important.
I know. My thing is I fall asleep with the kids. If the lights are off at 7:30, but then I just don't get out of bed. So I might do a bit of work, or and then it's like, oh, it's 9:30, and I'm I turn my phone off, but it's still that I'm on it till 9:30.
And then your brain is being on.
Yeah. Thankfully I don't have any trouble falling asleep. Sometimes I do wake up around 3, and my kids sleep in my room with me, so that sometimes they don't wake me up, but last night Christian did. But yeah, I am that's like, feels like my next thing is to like phone off by 8. And you just muted. What did you say?
Oh no, I whispered, get them out of your room. You know how I think, that's fine. That's
Never, Rach.
Whatever rocks your boat. But
they don't affect my sleep. If Bruno's in my bed now, if he affected my sleep, I wouldn't. And we take turns. So we've got 3 in the big room, and then whoever has to get up early in the morning sleeps in the spare room. So we kind of alternate. But honestly, Bruno, even though he's in the bed, he doesn't roll around, and I'm off breastfeeding now. So
perfect. Not perfect. It's whatever rocks your boat. I'm not. It's not a.
So if experiencing high cortisol,
sorry,
no, you go.
No, but like you say, if it is affecting your sleep,
yeah, of course, yeah. High cortisol, does that mean we should not be starting our day with coffee then?
Yeah, because look, I'm a coffee in the morning drinker because I intermittent fast, and but when my adrenals were particularly bad, I gave up coffee for months and months and months. I chose to live without coffee so that I could heal my adrenals enough so I could drink coffee again.
Yeah.
So much I love it. But it's again, it's like the coffee. If you think about it, it's like stealing energy from the future.
Yeah,
right. Your adrenals attacked, and I get it, because when you're a mum and you've got shit to do, and but if you think about it, there might be a different way to do it.
Yeah, and one that will require work, but it's. We just have to now. I think I was listening to something that by 36, you've literally you've got to be exercising, and I'm like, oh, I've robbed so much, as I was taking me a mum to actually get my ass into gear, because I'm like, what have I been so fucking lazy for so many years? Seriously. And now I'm like, yes, the gym. Yes, I get so excited to move my body now, but probably because it's a break from the kids as well. But I'm literally like, I do not want to be super fat and super old and not be able to look after and run after my kids. That's a huge driver for me. Like I
Yeah,
cannot be well.
I mean, and my thoughts on this too, like that it's not, nobody's fat, nobody is fat. We're
Yeah.
humans. Sometimes
Fat.
we have more adipose tissue than others. And all of our bodies are beautiful. That is not in question. However,
Yeah.
sometimes our bodies are not working that well. And if our vital organs are
Yeah.
covered in adipose tissue, they don't work. Heart disease is the biggest killer of women in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and America, and England, either the first or second.
Yeah.
99% environmentally driven. Now that
Yeah.
seems to me to be just a big load of bullshit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
not that our bodies aren't beautiful. Like I say
Totally.
this to my husband, I'm like, Mr. Bird, you got a lot of vital organs around that, under that puku. You might want to, that's this tummy. You might want to, and then I hold my ass, and I'm like, this can be as big as it wants. There's no vital organs there. Like it's about thinking about, and
Yeah.
when livers aren't working that well, and as we approach middle age, we do carry more weight around the middle, but it's often
Yeah.
because our livers aren't working that well. It's because we've put a lot of pressure on them, and we don't look after them, because heaven forbid that we would invest in our wellness. We'll spend 20 grand on a fucking wedding, but we won't spend a couple of $1,000s on someone helping us get weller. I mean, don't get me started on that whole tangent.
I love it. I love it. But I mean, yeah, it's literally the quality of, I mean,
People spend 60 grand on a car, but
I
won't
know.
go to see someone to help their business or to help their wellness. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I was talking about it before in a group call I was running, and I was just like, it doesn't matter actually how much money you have. You're looking for aliveness, whether
Yeah.
it's, like that's the key indicator for everything, is like we want to feel alive. We stretch and we build and we create. That's we will always do that. It doesn't matter how much money, but if you don't feel alive, well, you've got nothing.
Yeah, and one of just going back to the speaking of that feeling, like one of the things about another primary food is having something in your day that really speaks to your heart. I'm incredibly fortunate that I get to do this work because I love it. Same with you, I imagine. Like it's something that, so I don't want to not be doing this.
Yeah.
If you don't get to do that for your job, you need to find something in your
Totally.
day that really speaks to your heart, because that's a primary food. If your day is just like drudgery, you forget, it doesn't matter what you eat. Fucking forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's all of the things.
Yeah, all the things. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. And I know this is just literally a taste, but if you want to talk to Rach about your bloods and your overall health, she is a magician when it comes to this stuff. And yeah, we can't put it on the back seat. We literally have to. It has to be a priority.
Yeah, it does. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, thank you, Rach Bird. I love ya.
Love you more. Okay. Bye.